5:30, October 29th, 2024. We'll call the meeting of the Commission Efficiency Ad-Hoc Committee to order. I've asked Commissioner Rogers if he would to give the invocation, please.
Let us pray. Lord, our gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you again and just thank you for the day that you've given us and the blessings that you've bestowed upon us. Father, we just ask that you'll be with us here tonight as we conduct the business of Sumner County, that you'll give us a level head to talk about the concerns that we have with the commission and more efficient ways to run it and make it better for all involved. God, we just ask that you still be with those in East Tennessee and the Carolinas, and that your hands will be upon them, keep them safe and comfortable, but most of all, let them know that you're still there and you are the Lord of Lords and King of Kings. Father God, we thank you again, we praise you and we love you. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Amen. You have the proposed agenda in front of you. Any additions? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve it as written.
So much.
Second.
Commissioner Rogers, Commissioner Smith. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the minutes from October 3rd's meeting.
If I may interject, Chairman.
Sure.
On C, if we could restate that the limiting of the 1 hour for the meeting was for this committee only. I've had a couple of commissioners calling me thinking that now theirs are supposed to be 1 hour in duration.
Sure. You want to add that with your, whoever makes the motion to approve, just add that to the motion to approve the minutes as corrected.
I'll make the motion, but I'll be on form only since I was not here.
Okay. Have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, any discussion? Any other additions or corrections? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Brings us to recognition of the public. We have one individual signed up to speak. Since we didn't have any old business and we didn't pass anything, we're going to limit it to 3 minutes, if that's okay.
Well, this is going to be very, very quick.
Okay.
I promise. I applaud your efforts to make things more efficient.
I'm sorry, just for the record, just state your name.
Kevin Baker,
Sorry.
424 A.B. Wade Road. You know, I applaud efficiency, but I get a little concerned. It wasn't that long ago that we approved and spent $100 million on a new criminal justice center, and for the last 15 months or so, the Gen Ops meeting never had a meeting as they managed that program, and we wonder why we have issues. So, you know, we have a committee process for a reason. I know it takes time, but from a public's perspective, I am enthralled with the amount of dialogue that goes on in the meetings. I've never seen the kind. Now, it could be more efficient, perhaps, but at least we're talking. Maybe we're not on the same side, but we're talking and getting some issues out there. And that needs to be done for all transparency from a taxpayer's perspective. So I'm concerned that we don't kind of put our blinders on and say, oh, we got to limit meetings, and I know this meeting, but we have to kind of just do all this talking behind the scenes and then vote on it, because that's what used to happen. We can't let that happen, folks. That transparency is, I mean, we're living through that in Washington, D.C. We live through a lot of that in Tennessee, state capital. We don't need to be living through it in Sumner County. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, report of the chairman. Just as a reminder, and appreciate Mr. Sittler catching that in the minutes, that we are limiting this particular committee, this specific committee, to a 1 hour time limit unless approved by a majority vote. If we're involved in a productive discussion, certainly we can do that. We can extend it for a protracted period of time. And I am trying to keep a watch on the time, and hopefully we won't need that going forward. So that's my report. We don't have any old business. Am I correct, Mr. Law Director? We don't really have
That's
any old
my
business.
understanding, correct.
Okay, so we're going to skip right on down to new business. Discussion proposals for amending commission rules and procedures. I'll open the floor for anything. We've had one of the things that we talked about in the last meeting was going through the rules and procedures and bringing ideas to this committee for consideration to recommend up to legislative. So does anybody have anything in specific that they would like to talk about to start off?
I'll start with the first one,
Sure.
and I'll just take one item, I don't wanna
Sure,
monopolize.
absolutely, yeah.
So I would like to discuss, towards the front of our standing rules, we have regular meetings. It just simply states that we'll meet the third Monday of the month. And then we spend a lot of time discussing all those holiday months.
Sure.
A lot of county commission standing rules continue on to say unless Monday is a holiday, in which case we'll meet the next day. I would propose that we come up with something. I like the simplicity of the next day, cuts down on a lot of discussion. Some propose we'll meet,
Instead of, let me just interject, you're talking about instead of bumping it to the next Monday.
and we could bump it to the next Monday. I'm just saying that we clearly state in there what we're gonna do on the holiday Monday.
Sure.
Instead of getting to the floor and saying, well, look, here comes a holiday next month. Let's all get our calendars out and spend 15 minutes discussing it.
Don't
So-
we just usually approve the calendar in August or September?
We do approve the calendar for holidays.
Right.
But if you recall, when a holiday comes, we're sliding those committee meetings all over the place, and this upcoming month is a good example.
That I do stipulate too.
So, yeah, I'm just saying.
Because I know
that-
we had a hard time even scheduling the next meeting for this one because we're trying to accommodate people. Of course, it is an ad hoc committee, which is a little different. But yeah, I get your point.
So, like I said, I look for best practices, and I looked through several county commission standing rules, and I noted that that's how they handled it.
Right.
I'm not saying that the following day is the answer. Another time that they do it, in addition to holidays, is when there's an emergency. Let's say there's a water main break here, we can't meet on Monday. It clearly tells us all what we're gonna do. We're gonna meet the next day, and we could go on further to say that the county clerk will notify us, or the chairman will notify us
Right.
of any change. We have that spelled out, we can save ourselves all that time with get out your calendar, or I'll email you with a survey, and when can you meet? That one little slice, I think we could save time.
Okay. That's one way, yeah, I agree. Are you prepared to put that in the form of a motion? Or you just want to throw that out there for discussion's sake?
For discussion's sake, and I would be, so we don't need a resolution, we're just
No.
gonna change our standing rules. Yes, I would motion that we vote on how we would like to have an alternative day, whether, I would be in favor of the next Tuesday, and unless the group would like to discuss the alternative day before we put together a motion.
Commissioner Rogers?
I don't think, and I just thought of this, I don't know that it would be always the next Tuesday, because some months we move to the following Monday. I think it was what, 1st of September maybe? We
Mhm.
moved it down to the following Monday. So,
I did, if I may.
yeah,
I did see that in a couple of counties, and what they did is they actually took out their calendar, and they were saying that in the month of, I believe they might have had September, November, and December, and they said, these 3 months, we will go to the 4th Monday. So they took it a step
fair.
further. I was giving you the most simplistic answer, but I would like a discussion.
Yeah, I can remember back when we adopted this fiscal year's calendar, I think fall break is what caused
Yeah.
the majority of the discussion. I'm not sure it was, because we already know what the holidays are gonna be well in advance, but we don't know necessarily about fall break. So that might be something we need to take a look at if we can get, I thought you, oh yeah, go ahead.
I want to just be clear, are we just talking about the commission meeting, or are we talking about committee meetings too?
I'm talking about the commission meetings because they set the stage for all the committees.
Because the committee meetings have the same problem.
They really do.
Yes, we need an answer that's all
Didn't we,
encompassing.
in our first, it seemed like our first year, and maybe we missed it this year, didn't we set the commission meeting dates after the first year was up for the following year? I didn't see that this time, but usually I thought we established all the commission meetings a year in advance. And it was even, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, published on the county website.
It is, because it's done by resolution.
So,
It's done by resolution to adopt the calendar for the commission meetings.
yeah.
The-
And then we come in and we change them.
True.
And we spend quite a significant time on
Yeah.
those months that we do change them. I make a suggestion
Sure.
that we propose this to the commission and ask them to vote on their alternative. If it would be a calendar approach that we stick to and planning out these holidays ahead of time, or is it as simple as the Tuesday after the holiday? Because that helps as my brain gets older, I can remember that a lot easier. And we just put it up for a vote.
Of course, we've only got 12 commission meetings, but we've got
Commission.
700, yeah, or so,
And then
committee
subcommittee.
meetings, especially with the ad-hocs that we've thrown in. Mr. Sidler, what would be your suggestion on handling the committees? Or do you have one, or is it
With
something?
my involvement in so many committees that end up being on commission, my concern is how it gets up to commission, because what seems to happen is everything that the committee was set up to do was to vet for the commission to make a final decision on, ends up getting re-vetted at the commission meeting, which begs the question, why did we send it to committee? So if you're going to send something up, my suggestion is that you send up what you think is a good plan from this committee and let them decide. I would not be bringing in others to offer interjection, because this will go south quick. I think it's y'all's opportunity to say, you've tasked us with trying to make it efficient, this is what we think is efficient, yes or no. But
Or maybe we could make a recommendation to the legislative committee to take a look at the calendar pursuant to this discussion. Maybe that's how we make the motion, because ultimately they're gonna have to act yea or nay. Maybe that's the way we approach it. What do you think?
I'm good with that, or I'm good to go with, I'm all in favor of taking a vote for the next day's Tuesday.
Okay, let me interject this. Given your scenario where something's wrong with the building, the next Tuesday wouldn't help anyway, because the building would probably be shut down. So,
In
I'm just using your scenario. So,
that case, the county clerk would tell us to meet at the courthouse when they contact us, if the building burned.
Or maybe the archive building.
But to your point, that we ask legislation to take a look at it, I think that's just what Mr. Sidler is saying, we're just passing it off. That this committee should,
yeah, well, that's what we'd be doing anyway, even with a motion and second or pass, because they would ultimately have, we're just an ad hoc, they would ultimately have to act on it, yes or no. So,
if I may again.
Yes.
I think as you all tackle these, which is a great idea, I think this committee would be better served to create a list of proposed changes so we hit all this at once, instead of, you see at the title page of this how many times since 2022 this has been amended, that we can just hit as many of these amendments at one time, create a new version, and then send it up that way. So I don't think, if you want to vote on it and everything, that's fine, but I don't necessarily think you need to move it till you're ready to make some significant changes to this.
so why don't we put this particular subject under old business for our next scheduled meeting, and during that time, I mean, I don't think it's out of order for us to talk about, discuss what we think, whether it's the next Tuesday, the following Monday, what have you, maybe a proposed site in the event of an emergency. I do think the courthouse is a better alternative, because it's got more room for the general public to come in.
Just to put my lawyer hat on,
Yeah.
you are soliciting comments, not deliberating.
Correct, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're not deliberating, we're not voting, we're just.
But as you
soliciting
reach out, I
comments.
think that's a great idea.
And we could bring in sorry,
No, you're good.
we could probably bring in an example of the schedule to
Yes.
compile together and push it
Why don't
on.
why don't all of the members
Try to get
and,
a schedule.
try to put a schedule
calendar.
together and see what we come up with? Maybe we all come up with the same one. Fair enough.
Yeah, I think I have found 3. I don't like to recreate the wheel. 3 different ones that
Why
different
don't you send it
counties.
to the Ad-Hoc committee?
I can
And
do
and
that.
copy Mr. Sidler.
I think there were 3 that I found that they outlined that, and I think one was a calendar.
Good. Good.
One thing that I would like to bring up, if it's all right, well, there's a couple of things. One, in the commission meeting, typically when a committee chairman stands up to give a report, if they don't have anything to advance to the body to take a vote on, typically what we have always heard is, no report, Mr. Chairman, or Madam Chairman. So I do think, I don't know that that is an opportunity to provide a recap of the meeting. I think we've seen that, and it may just be inexperience, but I don't think that's the proper form to provide a recap when the meetings are available out there online to watch. So I think that's something that we might want to take a look at as well. In addition to that, on page 2 of our rules and procedures, under section C, subsection 6, number 2, and this may fall under what Commissioner Boyd handed out to us from Finance Director Lawing. This $25,000 rule, when you've got a budget of $500 million between the schools and the general fund, that might want to be taken a look at, and I'll tell you why, because anything 50,000 and above would require an architect. Maybe it needs to be raised to 50.
I'm sorry, which page?
Page 2,
Okay.
section C, under order of business, approval of the regular agenda, number 2.
Yes, and you will see in Mr. Lawing's, he is raising it to 50,000.
See, that's what I think. I think that's he's being proactive on that, and I think that's a good call. I think that's something that we certainly need to take a look at.
Yeah, it is. It's on the first page, about right here.
Is this something they're already going ahead with on Gen Ops? Is that what?
My understanding from my discussion with Mr. Long this afternoon is he sent this out, and I said, he said, of course, I approached him and I said, do you have anything for this efficiency committee? And he said, I believe this policy I've been working on will save the full commission a lot of time. If we go through these steps, a lot of the questions will be answered.
Good.
One of the items, as I reviewed his, and sort of back to the point about the standing reports to the commission, it kind of goes against what you're saying about them not standing up and reporting. I would like to, for the full commission, I would like to have a report, a monthly report for projects to show us our timeline where we're at and if we're on budget or over budget. Just a quick snapshot. Now we
Would that not be available inside the committee meeting?
It's not.
Not currently. I'm going to ask him to include it in this policy, and perhaps it would.
You talking about like for budget, like on capital projects where we are?
Yes.
Okay.
When we
But
have.
that would be prepared by David, correct? Okay. Okay. So are you saying, are you wanting to see something similar to what our trustee provides for us, a monthly report laid on our desk when we get there?
That would be nicer, and the package would be better.
The package would be better.
So that would be just like the elected officials report then, in the legislative committee.
If
It's
that
just
would fall
all
under
part
that
of the
section of the
package.
agenda.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you would want to bog down the full commission, but a report, so we'll all know, so there's not a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking if we're getting it, that way everybody has it. Public has it, everybody can see it if it's in that packet. Just like elected officials report, I think that.
So you want it as part of the agenda packet?
Just for discussion, if that would answer more questions and remove them from the floor, I'm all for it.
Sure.
That's my only purpose here is
I
to,
got you.
to say if it would answer their questions.
It may add more kindle to the fire though, because if it's part of the agenda, then everybody and their mama can come sign up and talk about it.
I didn't mean actually putting it on the agenda. What I meant was sent with the agenda packet that's emailed to everybody.
I see what Daryl is saying.
Yeah.
Leave it in the committee. And
That's
if we
what I
wanna
would do.
look,
That would
have
be
it in
my-
the committee package.
That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, that way
I agree with that.
everybody'd still have access to it.
Right.
Yeah,
It
because you
wouldn't-
can watch the committee meetings if you can, or not.
Or look at the package. Yeah, I like that.
But that would be updated schedule and updated dollars, right?
But finance would do it.
Finance would do it all, schedule and dollars.
That would just be in the budget.
That's what I'm gonna suggest.
Okay.
Right? That would be in the budget committee.
It should go to it would, through this, it would go to general ops, I think. I don't know, that's for them to work out, not me.
Yeah, and we would, general ops would forward it on to budget.
I don't know, that's beyond the scope of this discussion.
Yeah, that would speed up a lot of things. A lot of things.
So
Welcome, Mayor.
are we making any kind of motion or tabling it to old business on this 25 to 50?
I think you, if it's already gonna be presented to general ops, I mean, ultimately, it's gonna end up in legislative anyway to enact.
Just let it ride through?
I think you just let it ride through and let's see what this recommendation, how that pans out.
Okay.
And let them take it up. Sounds like they're already doing it.
Terry, or Mr. Chairman, in this first page of the landscape one, when it talks about, and we may not want to get bogged down with this, maybe somebody can direct me, but that do not require an architect or engineer will follow the county's purchasing policies, budgetary processes, and all applicable laws. Do we have that somewhere? Or is that something I need to get from Mr.
That
Long?
may be a discussion for Mr. Long and
Okay.
budget and general ops.
I think that's $25,000.
Well, right now in our rules and procedures, it's 25,000.
But we discovered, if I'm not mistaken, in 2022 that, or maybe it was early 2023, that the state had moved that to 50,000. So we've been working under the 50,000.
We've been more conservative, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Well, that's good.
Then we definitely need to get this change in there.
For sure.
There's just one thing, and I'll speak to Mr. Long, I'm thinking about it now. With the 50,000, I believe you have to have a dedicated purchasing agent employed. There's some requirements, I'll speak to Mr. Long about it. To get to the 50, there was the state put in a few more pieces. And we're almost there, I believe. I believe our purchasing, maybe when I spoke to him about it 6 or 9 months ago. I'll speak to him again. And if we need to, we can get there. I'll speak to him on that parameter.
Good deal. All right. Next up. Next suggestion. Anyone?
If you've got an item that goes through a committee process and it's a unanimous vote, the whole committee votes to forward it to commission, I think we need to look at, just kind of brainstorm here to get this out, but it should not be taken off the commission agenda unless there's a valid reason. If the public's been noticed on said agenda item through our county website, that it's also noticed at that meeting that it's going to be forwarded to commission, it just seems like we're creating more of old business by sending it back to committee, by rejecting it. Like, example, Highway Committee. In August, we had a unanimous decision to move a thing for a county road to the full floor of the commission. And this is no criticism on anybody, I'm just suggesting. Chairman of the Highway Committee didn't want it, so he took it off. Now, I understand that it's by a vote too, but if it's a unanimous decision, you've had citizens that were for this, and you had citizens against this on both sides. And both sides that I personally talked to were very upset that they didn't get to publicly speak that night. They said, what was a unanimous decision in that committee? And
Typically, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
Typically, a unanimous decision, unless it's a budgetary item that exceeds our rules and procedures, would typically go, if it's had the second waiver, the second reading waived, would go to the consent agenda. Is that correct?
It's under 25.
Yeah, as long as it.
yeah, this was no dollar. I mean, it was no dollar amount, of course, with this particular
Of course,
item.
any commissioner can remove anything
Yeah.
off consent agenda. So by definition, it wouldn't be consensual by all 24. So I'm not sure how we would get there.
Yeah, I'm just trying to,
You're
The
just saying
citizens from-
removing it completely from the agenda.
removing it from, and there's
Not
no,
just from
no
consent
dollar
down to-
amount, there's no reason other than, well, the citizens didn't know about this. Well, yes, the citizens did know about it because it was listed on the agenda. And this is what's bogging down future agendas on committees. It's like, you get a thick packet on a committee, it's because it's been kicked back to the committee, goes back to the committee, it gets log jammed in there, and it goes nowhere. And look, a lot of us just want an up or down vote on it. Let's just put it to bed. If we're not gonna do it, in this particular case, it would have given the city of Hendersonville some closure. Okay, they're not gonna do it. Instead of just, having it come up repeatedly, you're wasting taxpayer money. I'm sure they're getting, I don't know if they're getting overtime here, but you're putting something back on an agenda when you know it's probably not gonna go anywhere.
Well, without getting into the particulars of debating that
Right,
particular
yeah.
issue, I think I see what your point is how did it just get removed from the agenda, not just from consent down into the committee area? You're saying it was removed completely.
It was removed completely. Now, citizens have concerns, and I get that, but we all have ample time, and, it's noticed. So, I mean, if citizens couldn't make it, I get it, but this wasn't something we just last minute willy-nilly. This was, first heard in August and then put right on the commission agenda.
Mr. Sidler, is there something procedurally we need to look at in terms of that?
This falls within the commission's purview. This isn't a legal issue. So it's classic politicking is what I'm hearing. And to fix one problem is going to create another problem in another area. So I don't see an easy solution here versus status quo.
Right.
It's almost like, what's the point in putting it back on the committee?
I've always heard you can't
Yeah.
take politics out of politics. So,
So if I may,
yes.
I think I agree, and without getting into detail
Sure.
on specific items, I believe that what has been missing, and I brought this up at different times in different ways, is a clear steering of items through the committees. Sometimes things may go back and be on the old items. Sometimes they may go forward. Sometimes they leapfrog way forward. We don't have any procedures that I've seen, and perhaps we have in the past had resolutions that prior commissions have had, and those have been dug out, and I've dug a couple of them out and thrown them on the table in budget last year. We're not working under any clear steering of items through committees. We could have a process that has a form that definitely does send it to the next level. This committee is sending this up, we're sending these 3 items, and this is where it's going. But we don't have any guardrails around anything of that nature on how it goes. Sometimes, unfortunately, I've tracked items that just fall off. And they're never spoken about again. I've seen those items too. So we don't have it, and if somebody could find them, I think they're probably in the past somewhere they used to have them. But do y'all know of any guidelines we have?
The only thing I can interject is, again, we can't predict everything that's going to be debated. Is some of this stuff has to go to more than one committee. You're just not going to get around it because a lot of stuff ends up leaving one committee and going to budget. So I don't know how you're gonna create this clean path that addresses all of your issues.
And if I may,
Yeah.
one county I looked at, they actually assigned that duty to what they call the steering committee, and they added it to one of their other committees, and that committee made the decision. When an item appeared, that committee was in charge of deciding the path it would take. Now, when I read their description, that's what it says. Now, in my mind, I imagine it says, let's say, citizens want a dog park. So they decide, the steering committee would then in that manner decide that needs to first go to Gen Ops and then budget and then full commission. And they would set out the pathway it would go.
Well-
Or something that, they just had a committee that decided, because like you said, there's many paths that an item could take.
And just to play devil's advocate, you've now created another committee.
And if it could solve Commissioner Smith's problems, I'd be okay. I would like to add it to a committee. The ones that I saw, it was a steering committee / committee on committee / legislative. That was how that county handled it. It was just another item for an existing committee. And I'm throwing it out as
If
an
I
idea.
may, just so that, because I'm trying to take notes for the next agenda. What I've written down, and please correct me if I've got this written down wrong, what you're wanting to see is basically a more clearly defined path for whatever item may come through the committee process to make its way to the commission floor. You're not talking about how something might be referred back to another committee or even referred back to a committee from the commission floor. You're just talking about various items, whether it be budgetary, whether it be Gen Ops. Am I
Yes.
understanding your?
Yes, just some guardrails, some committee to say which path it's gonna take or to track it to make sure it doesn't fall off the table. Just to answer Commissioner Smith in his, how did this happen? It's just a proposal, it's something I saw.
Commissioner
I'm not,
Well, for example, when I was chairman of General Ops, I never wanted to send anything forward to budget until we had properly vetted it out, understood the scope of the project, had a good understanding of what costs would be, and then make recommendations to budget that this is the scope, this is the job, this is what we think it's going to cost. And then moving forward, I think you're talking about circuitry. And there are some things like the storm drain from the parking structure to Water Street that is pretty clear cut. There are other things like the Brown Park that are not. And have, become a real obstacle. And so I think if we, and I don't know if it's a legislative committee issue or each individual committee should set up a circuitry. There should be a circuitry that especially for the standard things like the storm drain project. I mean, that should be very clear cut. We can get prices, rough prices, understand what the costs would be. I mean, for the most part, you can go online and find out what the pricing of pipe is and everything. But in that Franklin Street, it's a little more complicated. So I got 3 contractors and understood what their estimates would be. And that was an estimate that I could forward to budget with the scope because we already had the plans. The plans were done. So I think that would solve a lot of problems for budget, which is always a huge agenda. I mean, 400 pages is not uncommon with budget. So I think the circuitry issue that she's mentioning makes a lot of sense. I just don't know if it should be established by, the committee itself. When I came in 2022, I was as green as spring grass because I did not understand how things work. Here 2 years later, I understand it much better. So, maybe once we establish the circuitry, that will go from commission to commission to commission. But I think that would really, really speed up the meeting process, if we just knew what we were supposed to be doing.
Yeah, there are two things, and I've got you in queue, Commissioner Smith. There are two things that you've got at play here. Number one, you've got to still allow for various committee chairmen on the standing committees to have some latitude in setting their agenda. And number two, what Commissioner Klein just said is you have a turnover of 24 every 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And just like this time, 17 of them were, as you described, green as a gourd. And a lot of them didn't understand how the committee process works. So you're going to fight that every 4 years in knowing how it works its way through, unless you have some carryover, which we had a little bit from the previous commission. So I think.
Or a written procedure.
Correct.
I like procedures.
Commissioner
Yeah,
Smith.
and this is like, again, this is not to pick on any commissioners, but I don't know how, let's just hypothetically, if that would have made it to the floor that night, the county road thing, honestly, I don't think it would have passed anyway. But my concern is the city of Hendersonville, whether it was the city of Hendersonville, Westmoreland, any town here in Sumner County had, I don't know the exact amount of ARPA money on the line. They've got to make a decision with this money by the end of the year. My thought was, look, in all honesty, I don't think it would, again, I don't know how any of y'all would vote, but I read in the room that night, I don't think it would have got the 13 votes to allow Hendersonville to take part of that road. But my thing is it gives closure to the city to say, okay, now we can make a solid plan for this money. We can move it from this project to another project. It also allows the citizens, and look, there's an alderman in my ward that says his mind can be changed from the seat when he's up there on Tuesday nights. That can happen with any one of us there too. You got a citizen speaking, and to be fair, they're against it. Maybe they change my mind, maybe they don't. But by this continuing kicking back to the committee concerns me, especially when there's money there. And this was that it was a unanimous decision in August. And that, I get people change their mind, that's fine. But, you know, just at least in the future allows these cities that if they do have money on the line to say, okay, well, they're just not going to do it. You know, we can move on to plan B.
Without getting into specific issues, I mean, there is a process for asking for something to be put on the agenda. Again, even if it's failed, it could be modified and put back on, or it could go through the committee process again. So I think that's what we want to, without getting into specific issues, because that leads into unnecessary debate and outside the scope of this committee. So, yes, sir.
Since this is about efficiency and kind of splitting the baby here, well, it sounds to me like a lot of these we know what committee they need to go to. And if it's not clear, then make it a task of another committee, for example, legislative, and say we need a path for this, and even docket it that way. They're not there to make a decision, they're merely there to steer it. And then they can create the path that you're looking for, and then you're not creating a new committee.
And there's a little bit less, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's
you.
fine.
What I started to suggest was there's a little bit of a less formal process, which would be, I mean, Commissioner Hyde's been here 30 years. Commissioner Mansfield is a holdover. Commissioner Becker. These fellows should be able to advise a new commissioner on the process on how something ought to be able to go through. I mean, if we have questions, as you know,
But
been here 2 years.
if we could step back to what you said 10 minutes ago, there's politics.
Well, there's always politics.
I know,
mean,
there's
but
always
we're
politics.
not talking about. I'm not talking about a specific issue. What I'm talking about is if it's budgetary,
Yes.
or if it's determined, like general ops. I believe general ops' job is to determine, is there a need, is there not a need? If there's not a need, it gets to general ops, and general ops votes it down, it doesn't go to budget.
But
That's
sometimes
the
now-
way it's typically supposed to work.
But we've had instances in the last 2 years in which it did.
Where it went to budget. Well, they can always be added to the agenda on the floor.
Yes.
There's no question
So,
about
with
that.
our process, would you like to see it just go to the next committee, or we have? it
What I
has
would like to see is what I think we're trying to do here, which is define, help to make the committees and the commission meetings go more efficiently. Because I believe 99.9% of the people, they don't care about how the sausage is made, they just want the sausage. This is where the sausage is made, we're just trying to figure out how to get there in a more timely and efficient manner.
Could we do it like planning commission does, where the staff gives a recommendation? So let's say general ops sends it to budget with a negative or a positive recommendation. Or does general ops just kill it and budget never gets it? Right now, we have no procedures in place.
Again, that goes back to the suggested agenda at the beginning of each meeting. And maybe what we're talking about is maybe a little bit better understanding of how parliamentarily agendas and meetings ought to work. I mean, you can always, for example, in a commission meeting, if something's not on the agenda that's published, we have the opportunity beforehand to add something to the agenda with a majority vote. After the agenda is published, we still have an opportunity to add something to it with a 2/3 majority vote. That's 2/3 of the representation of the county. So maybe that's what we're talking about, is maybe a better understanding of how the meetings are actually supposed to be conducted. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. Feel free to shoot it down.
I agree with you. I think Robert's rules must address this function.
And if something is voted down, there's always a way for a motion to reconsider. Or in the middle of it, you can always amend it and postpone it or defer it, lay it on the table. There's a whole host of mechanisms within Robert's rules that we can use.
So do we go away with the idea of studying for the committee process in Robert's rules? How it should?
I think all 24 of us have that responsibility laid upon us when we got elected. Well, actually, I think when we put our petitions. But yes, I don't think it's gonna ever hurt any of us to refresh ourselves.
I'm sorry, my daughter's not well, so I'm just
No,
need to
no.
make sure she's not calling.
No,
I'm sorry.
So what do we have going to old business right now? To make sure that I'm caught up, because you've probably taken better notes than I have.
I'm sorry. Who are you talking?
You.
I've got, we're going to table how to create alternative dates for the commission.
Correct.
On an annual basis, the 50,000, and if you want to keep it on old business as an update, but we think that that's going to get resolved in another committee. And then the last thing we were talking about was steering.
What about the
I don't know how
updated, what about the capital projects report? Is that something we just want to ask, or we want to leave that in Gen Ops?
That's entirely up to you all. Is it overkill for a commission meeting? I don't, that would be y'all's decision to make.
I would defer to Commissioner Rogers. After he explained it, that it should stay in Gen Ops in their package.
Yeah.
We'll take that off.
And then lastly, the steering is what I've got.
And I think with the steering, it's just a matter of if we want a written procedure, or we keep just figuring out as we go. That would be what I see where we're at right now. We just continue, or we write it down.
It would be, and I'm just thinking outside the box, but it would be hard to write down every scenario and where everything starts. I mean, there's a lot of grants that come through that's like the GHSO grant we just passed last month. I mean, that started, I guess this month, that started in, health and emergency services, then it went to budget, then it went to full commission. That's easy to do, but there may be some stuff that somebody's contacted me about, or health and emergency services about, or Gen Ops about, or whatever, and then it needed to start at a different committee based on what the idea was. Am I making any sense? I don't think you could really write it all out as how it would fall and which committee it would go to. I mean, we would be writing across the county, I think, trying to write all that out, how it would fall and which committee it would go to. Because it may go from Health and Emergency Services to budget back to Health and Emergency Services, because they want to change the idea.
Let's just refer it back to committee,
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They could refer it back to the original committee.
which
where
all,
it came
again,
from.
falls under Robert's rules.
Right. So it could go everywhere.
I do see yourself painting yourself in a corner on
Correct.
on getting specific, because you're gonna squeeze so tight, everything slips through the cracks.
Yep.
And you're gonna have trouble routing stuff because you've created a perfect case scenario on how you want stuff routed.
So in any way, have we resolved Commissioner Smith's issue? No.
I don't think so.
And I know we're not trying to be specific, but that's the best thing I could come up with. And it, like I said, it's a unique thing. It's just, you know, I know we want to try to make this efficient, at the same time, even the committee meetings efficient. I mean, why kick something that was unanimous back to committee unless there's a really specific reason? Because it saves everybody the headaches and, you know, the time of having to bring it up. You know, you sitting in there for 3 or 4 hours on something that you know is probably not going to move anywhere.
Something else, just to let you know that David Loyne is writing some policies.
Yeah, Commissioner Boyd presented that to us
Okay.
earlier, and it had the 50,000
Okay.
in there, yes. Yeah,
Okay,
we
good.
talked about that.
I didn't know if he presented those.
One other thing that I wanted to mention specifically that Mr. Hyde had asked me to put on my notes is, and this is just for discussion, we have a mechanism inside the rules and procedures that allow for the changing of a vote. It's in section F on page 11, at any time up until the end of the meeting. Which, I understand his point, could be fraught with peril, because if we take a break, and then somebody at 9:59, and we're fixing to adjourn, wants to change their vote, and it was
It's too early.
13 to 11, and now it's 12 to 12.
It's too early.
Or we're texting.
Or
People
you
have
meet in the
them.
bathroom.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it could be any of those scenarios. So that's maybe something we want to take a look at. I know that our previous clerk, Mr. Kemp, used to announce, and I know that Ms. Carolyn has also done this in times past. He would always say, anyone not voting wishing to vote, anyone wishing to change their vote.
Yep.
And once the vote's announced, then that's it. That might be something that we want to talk about. I'm not necessarily saying we have to solve that tonight, but it might be something that needs to be looked at, because it could be some, you see where that could
I
be a
definitely-
problem.
And I'd like to add to it a very probably unpopular idea. Our voting apparatus, the buttons, my understanding is they have a function for blind voting. That is something, that is taking it one more step. Mr. Hyde mentioned that people could change their votes. Do you understand what I mean by blind voting? It doesn't show your votes until the clerk turns them on, and everyone's vote comes on at the same time. So I cannot see your vote before the vote is cast, and cast solid, no changing. So there is no,
Of course, if we can't see it, neither can the public.
well, no, they would see
They can see it at the end.
Once it's
in the
done.
end, once it's done, the board opens.
Now, I remember.
There's no influence.
Now, this is going back in the day. They used to take a roll call on every single vote.
Mhm.
That's back when it was a court, wasn't it?
That was back when it was, well, yeah, it had just turned in, it was the quarterly court, and then it
Yep.
turned into the county commission.
We still do on planning commission.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily a bad thing,
No.
but the purposes of this meeting is to be more efficient, not less efficient. So, or this committee rather. So, but yes, I mean, that's not necessarily, it's just something we might want to think about as we're going forward. And of course, that would also fall under legislative as well, to do any of these changes, so.
We're gonna put that to old business.
Isn't that voting though, isn't that by Robert's rules right there?
I don't think Robert's rules says that.
Yeah.
I was trying to, I think
Robert's
it's,
rules does address that a vote is cast until the gavel hits.
that, I was gonna
So-
say, it doesn't mirror this.
This is out of Robert's rules.
Yeah,
This is an
I was gonna say,
exception.
this is one of the areas in the rules where it is way beyond anything
As
Robert's
many
rules of
amendments
order.
and as many votes as we've taken, we'll have to appropriate for Chairman Hyde a new gavel. If he'll break it. But your point is valid, I don't think there's any question about that. Yeah, we can put that under old business to talk about. Anything else to be brought before the committee? We're at 50 minutes right now.
Can I
can.
ask two things to be considered?
Sure.
One, with especially of late, things that we know are double committee items, and this is just an ask from my office. If you can double load these, for example, Gen Ops and budget, you know it's gonna have to hit both. If they can be preloaded, we can always pull it off the subsequent meeting if it doesn't pass. But that will save time and get some of this stuff moving to commission quicker. And the other thing is, the rules are very specific about, on page 10D2, technically, all the resolutions that want to be presented at the commission meeting are supposed to be the first Monday of each month. I don't think that's ever happened in my office, and that's fine, but here of late, I'm getting slammed with a bunch because the committee meetings are running so close together and things are trying to be moved fast. I don't mind this being shortened as far as the time, but I think we need to get something.
Show me where you're talking about.
I'm sorry, it's
Yes.
page 10D2,
Okay, in order to appear.
and if y'all could just maybe mull that over, and at the end of the day, it's whatever you all decide.
How would you like it to change to something, or you would like it to be in your office by the first Monday?
As a minimum, it would be very helpful if I could at least get them a full week before the commission meeting.
And you're not getting them now?
When are you getting
I'm
them?
usually getting them I'm finishing them up as I'm walking them to the commission agenda. Because the meetings have gotten so many and so scattered throughout the month that instead of using this rule, everything would be getting kited back. And it'd always be one more month added to it trying to get it on commission. And I know some of this stuff needs to move quicker than that. So we try to keep it a rolling machine.
I understand. Well, you may be being too nice. And too accommodating.
I need to be careful saying this, but I don't know if we can get more packed than it is now, but
Yeah,
just food for thought.
okay. Put that under old business for sure, item D2.
If it's not time sensitive, could we do it the month before?
You can give them to me anytime you want, and I'll have them roughed out and ready to go. It's just, I don't need, if I'm preparing resolutions and it's a week before and there's still some coming in, they're just gonna have to get bumped to the following month, and I'm trying to prevent that from happening. And I'm hoping there's more involvement with my office, maybe a little bit earlier, to say, here's what I'm proposing. And when we hit these committee meetings, we can actually have a draft resolution floating around. I find it's easier for you all to make your amendments and changes if you're looking at something.
Right. Visual markers.
Same way.
Kim,
And what was the other one that you had mentioned?
If the committees can front load stuff they know needs to be on two committees,
Capital projects followed by budget or something.
yes.
Gen Ops did the budget.
And that's the important one, is budget, because budget gets slammed with a lot of last minute stuff.
Is anything else from the committee members?
Can I ask, with all the items going to old business, and I understand we're going to mull these over and discuss them next time, can we have a limit on how many, there's
Yeah,
probably 50
I've got a half a
things.
dozen right now.
Can we limit what we hold on old items before we open up another can
Oh, I think
of
we need to come to a
issues?
resolution on these before we add something else. Yes.
Agree,
Yeah. I think it'd make it easier for
yes.
Mr. Silver too.
So if we could get a to-do email out on what exactly we're all considering, and we all bring back our best ideas. I know that I've agreed to send back the alternative dates item, but if we all bring back our best idea for all, what do we have now, 4 or 5 items that we've opened?
Yeah, I've got actually 6.
I've got 6.
Well, I'm sorry, it is 5 because that one is Stan and Jim Hodge, so we've got 5.
So if we knock one off, we put one on?
How about don't push our luck? I'll try to send out something in conjunction with Mr. Sittler. I'll try to get with him in the next day or two, and we'll try to send something out to the members of the committee. That way, we'll kind of stay on task. And I'll also include with that a list of potential dates for the next meeting, because I know we're going to run into the holidays with Thanksgiving and stuff, so.
Oh, that was gonna be my question. Are we gonna keep this on a,
Try to keep it on a monthly basis, I hope.
but not date specific? every
Not date
month?
specific
Okay.
yet, I don't
So-
think we're quite there.
That's fine. I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything as
The
far as
last Tuesday of the
calendar.
month would be the 26th, and I'm okay with that. I don't have anything unless anybody else has got something. But you can always email me in the next day or two to let me know for sure.
The 26th.
28th is Thursday.
Yeah, that'd be good. Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I'm good on the 26th.
My father-in-law is back in the hospital, so I'll do my best.
I understand. Mr. Jones has been patiently waiting. We was trying to get through the discussion. We've got a couple of minutes. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to address something that may help you guys out. Something was brought up several times during the meeting, took a lot of the discussion. You guys were trying to solve what happened in Highway and why it got taken off the floor, and I wanted to explain a little bit about why it got taken off the floor, and to let you know that our process, our rules did work. We learned new information after the meeting took place, after the unanimous decision was had at the committee meeting, which sent it to the commission floor, but we learned throughout that week from hearing feedback from citizens that what we were told at the committee meeting by Hendersonville representatives wasn't necessarily the whole truth. And we found out a lot more information. We wanted to revisit that. We found out that it had not even passed the Hendersonville Board of Mayor and Aldermen, hadn't even passed their board yet. It was just something brought up out of their committee. So knowing all that, we didn't think it was ready to go to the full commission to make a decision on. We wanted to bring it back to committee. And then that next committee meeting, the next month, took 3 hours, as everybody knows. We fully vetted everything through that committee. So the process worked to not waste time on the commission floor, which could have took hours of debate. And I think the committee process worked. We had a 3-hour meeting because we had an hour of citizen comments. That was way more efficient than doing all that at the commission floor. It then later got tried to be added to the agenda, it got voted down. Our rules did work. So rather than trying to solve something, I just wanted to give you my take on how the process worked. I think it was very efficient. Thank you.
Nothing else to be brought forward the committee? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So look, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Dismissed.